Welcome to my video about the Bulgarian alphabet. For those of you foreigners looking to master this alphabet, hopefully this will be the video for you. So let's get into it. History, it's based off the Greek alphabet a bit. This is the modern Bulgarian alphabet. The former one looked quite different from it. 30 letters, 4 more than English. Bulgarian alphabet is very easy to learn because each letter only has one sound. There are a few tricky letters in here as well, which we'll cover. If you learn to read this alphabet, you'll be able to read a lot of Russian, Ukrainian, Macedonian. You'll be able to read those languages and tell a lot of what they're saying, because the languages are very similar. If you're wondering how long it'll take you to learn this, 2 or 3 weeks if you really practice every day and learn hard. Might take a bit longer if not, but you could probably even do it in a week if you really set your mind to it. So without further ado, as you can see here, I've got the alphabet on the left. Let's get right into it. First letter is A. A is in army. Again, you can't say A or any other way, it's just A. Every letter has one sound. So the way this is going to go, I got the letter here and the English sound in a word, army, A, and a Bulgarian word, transliteration, and the definition. So the word for A is ananas, which means pineapple. Next letter is B, as in Bob. And the example is baba, which means grandmother. Now, this one's a bit tricky. This is not a B, this is actually V. It's the V sound, so velvet. Example would be vlak, as in train. Next letter, G, as in G. Looks similar to the Greek letter gamma. As I said, the language is based off of the Greek alphabet a bit. But G is in grape. And the word is grozde, which means grapes. Next letter, D as in diamond. D as in dog. Letter is diado, which means grandfather. Next letter, E as in electric. It's not E or A, or it's just E, electric. And the word is esen, which means autumn. Next letter, this one looks a bit funny, but this letter is J, like in pleasure. Example is živeja, which means to live, the verb. Next letter that looks like a 3 is actually Z, as in zebra, or zebra if you're British. The example is zima, which means winter. Next letter, backwards N, looks like backwards N at least, and that's E as in eat. Example is Ivan, which is the Bulgarian way of saying Ivan. So E, Ivan. Next letter, I kratko, short E. This is just a shortened version of the previous letter. So like the Y in yoga is a short E sound. You're only going to see this next to vowels. You won't see it by itself. So just remember short E. It's kind of like yoga, but if it was a long E like the regular E, it would be yoga, which that's not right. So we use the short E, yoga. Very simple. Okay. K, same as in English, no difference, cat. And the example is kotka, which means cat. This letter here is L, and the Bulgarian L is a bit different than English, but with a bit of practice you should be able to get it. For example, lemon. And in Bulgarian that is limon. Next letter M, same as in English, as in mouse. And in Bulgarian it would be mishka. So not a difficult one. This one is looks like an H, but it's not. It's another tricky one. This is actually the N sound, as in nose. Bulgarian example, nos. And you can kind of tell the language is different than English. It's much shorter and kind of stiffer, I guess. So, example, nos. Another tricky letter, but with a bit of practice, you'll get it. Next letter, just like English, O, operate. It's not O. You don't say O. You just say O. It's very short, precise sound. Example would be ogan, which means fire. Next letter, P. You may notice it looks similar to the Greek letter pi. And the example would be Peter, which is how you say Peter in Bulgarian. Next letter, very tricky. It's not a P, it's actually the R sound, as in red. This one will take a bit of practice, I'm sure, if you're just starting out. Example is riba, which means fish. Next letter looks like a C. You can never pronounce this K, because remember, in Bulgarian we have K, the letter K for that already. In English you can pronounce it so or K, but we only use sa in Bulgarian, as in salt. Example is sos, which means sauce. T, very simple, same as in English, as in top. Example is tiger, which means tiger. Uh-oh, another tricky one, but that's okay. This thing that looks like a Y is actually pronounced U. The example is ucho, which means ear. Something you may not have noticed, this capital Y is different than the English. They don't draw their capital Y like we do. So that's a way you can tell the difference in a flash if you need to. Moving along, this letter here is F. I seem to the way I understand it is the letter F isn't used a lot in Bulgarian. It's one of the lesser. It's used a lot less than in English, but that's F as in fan. The example is film, which means film. Another tricky one, and this is tricky for two reasons. We don't have this sound in English. It's pretty strange. This is the H sound, but they don't say their H like we do in English. It's more like H. So there's a lot more air to it. That's why people with Russian origins and Bulgarian origins tend to have that accent. If they wanted to say hat, they would say hat. You know, that kind of accent. This is where it comes from, because their H is pronounced H. Example is chlap, which means bread. So tricky, but just practice and you'll get used to it. This next one is ts, as in cats, ts, ts. Example is tsarevica, which means corn. This little thing that looks like a 4 is ch, as in charm. And the example is chasovnik, which means clock or watch. And this thing that looks like a W, it's actually sh, as in shell. Example is shapka, which means hat. And similar to the last one, but this one has this little stick on the end of it. You can think of that stick as the letter T, because this letter is shta, as in mashed. We don't really have, a lot of that in English, but it's very popular in Bulgarian and Russian, I believe, as well. An example is shtit, as in shield. This is ergolam, which is the big air. And this is kind of pronounced like as in up, but it's a lot deeper in your throat. It's like It's a very strange sound. They have it in Turkish and a few other languages. It's very you know, hard for me, probably hard for you too, but Bulgarians will understand if you give it your best. And the example is ugo, which means corner. Next up is ermalok, small air. So the previous one was a large one, and this one is a small one. You're going to notice there's no capital for this. That's why there's only one right here. It's because you're never going to see this letter at the start of a word. It's always going to be with an O, as in yo. And ermalok and O combined make the yo sound, as in chauffeur, which is chauffeur or driver. And here we're at you. Remember, you don't say you say you. You gotta be very precise about it if you want people to understand you. Example is Yuli, which means July. And 30th letter, we have the backwards R, which is also pronounced as ya, as in yabolka. So very simple. Probably my favorite letter, actually. Yabolka, Maria, for example. It's very common, really. You'll learn about this letter when we get to verbs. It's very popular there. But yeah, that was a quick review of all 30 letters. I hope this was the video for you if you're a foreigner like me looking to learn Bulgarian. I've been learning for about 3 years, and this is the best way I can teach it to you guys. This is my knowledge of it. So I hope you learned something. Like I said, 3 weeks of practice and you've got this down. It may seem hard at the start, but keep going at it. Don't be discouraged. There are some tricky ones, but just do your best and you'll do fine. And it's really fun to be able to read Russian and Ukrainian, Macedonian. Really, learning this alphabet will open a lot of doors for you in terms of being able to read things. So, thank you for watching. Stay tuned for more.